Welcome back to Professor Snyder's. It's me, Music Biz News. SLOP. Merriam-Webster's human editors have chosen SLOP as the 2025 Word of the Year. We define SLOP as digital content of low quality that is produced usually in quantity by means of artificial intelligence. The word captures growing frustration with AI's limitations, contrasting with the earlier excitement about its potential, and highlights the shift from awe to mockery as users encounter pervasive AI trash. The earliest use of the word slop was in the 1700s, and it was defined as soft mud. An even earlier definition from the 15th century meant mud hole or cow dung. My first use of the word slop was on a farm in Tennessee when I was told to go slop the hogs. Though references to AI slop date back at least to 2022, a poet and technologist who writes under the name Deepfates popularized it 2 years later as the term for unwanted AI-generated content. Shortly afterward, developer Simon Willison, somebody who writes code, shared the concept in a blog post. Not all AI-generated content is slop, he wrote, but if it's mindlessly generated and thrust upon someone who didn't ask for it, slop is the perfect term. AI slop, how every media revolution breeds rubbish and art. The popularization of the term slop for AI output follows a centuries-long pattern where new tools flood the zone, audiences adapt, and some of tomorrow's art emerges from today's excess. In this LinkedIn post, Benedict Evans wrote, "The reflexive use of the word slop makes me wonder what words people used to dismiss electronic music in the 80s, EDM, or remixes. Jive Bunny versus Fatboy Slim, perhaps. Good question. EDM was slammed pretty hard by traditional musicians as being trash, not really music. And what about rap? Let's ask Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead.
Rap is not music, for one thing. I mean, it isn't music, it's talking. That's what it says, rap. Rap means talking, it's not music. It's talking in meter, it's got rhyme, and it has meter. It has rhythm. It's not music. It's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I have no problem with it. It just isn't music, and people who get to be great at rap are not great musicians. They're just great at rap, It's not.
And what about rock? Frank Sinatra said, "My only deep sorrow is the unrelenting insistence of recording and motion picture companies upon purveying the most brutal, ugly, degenerate, vicious form of expression. It has been my displeasure to hear. Naturally, I refer to the bulk of rock and roll. It smells phony and false. It is sung, played, and written for most part by cretinous goons, and by means of its almost embellic reiterations, as I said before, it manages to be the martial music of every sideburn delinquent on the face of the earth." And most people don't know that ASCAP at one time would only license to radio what was considered to be good music, predominantly white music. And they ignored entire genres of music. But BMI came about by embracing emerging genres that ASCAP considered slop, including blues, jazz, hillbilly, and any ethnic or indigenous music such as Latin or Zydeco, or what was then known as race music, which we now know as rhythm and blues. Even the art world deals with slop. Maybe like this. But it is slop from the 1500s, created by this famous artist, Hieronymus Bosch. I think I got that right. Who was very famous for these kind of artworks: a pair of human ears brandishing a blade, a cavity in the torso populated by 3 naked persons at a table, seated on an animal, and a fully clothed woman pouring drink from a barrel. Doesn't that sound like slop to you? And how is that different from Italian brain rot? Maybe you haven't heard of it. It's the global paradox of Italian digital creativity. It is an internet meme created around January 2025, centered around surreal AI-generated images of creatures fused with objects, typically narrated by 11 Labs Atom AI text-to-speech voice, now a globally recognized genre. International creators celebrate it as a form of extreme creativity, post-irony, while others view it with growing concern, and here are some examples. So Deezer Ipsos survey, you've probably heard this before, 97% of people can't tell the difference between fully AI-generated and human-made music. Or worse, human-made content is mistaken for slop, or being generated by AI. In various studies, people usually were less trusting of content tagged as AI-generated, even if it's true, or a person completely made the content. The only thing worse than bad AI music is good AI music. What happens when the computer-generated slop is tolerable? Since most people can't identify the difference between AI music and human-created music, the ordeal is an unwelcome confirmation of a reality we're trying to shake like a bad dream. AI-produced music is real. It's imposing. And in 90% of cases, egregious garbage. The remaining 10% is where things get complicated. People seem to like the 10%, with AI music and artists at the top of the charts, which means people are listening to it. But how can they tell if something is AI or not? If AI was used, and by how much? Maybe by trusting those who submit music, willingly giving up parts of their royalties by voluntarily stating if and how much AI was used? How much can we actually trust Spotify with statements like this? Spotify strengthens AI protections for artists, songwriters, and producers. One commentary wrote, "It's a half-baked half measure, similar to YouTube's self-disclosure system, which lets creators mark if their video involves AI with an altered and synthetic media label on the video. Spotify doesn't seem to be making this a mandatory admission. Spotify's new policy won't stop the wave of AI slop." Remember that ASCAP, BMI, and SOCAN asked their writers to voluntarily state how much AI was used when the writers were submitting their music to these PROs. The Copyright Office even uses the honor system for when you're applying for a copyright. If you're going to submit a work for copyright registration towards the United States Copyright Office, you should disclose that your work contains AI-generated content. The United States Copyright Office's copyright registration guidance also states that applicants, again, should, it doesn't say must, should provide a brief explanation of the human author's contributions to the work. And in the literary world, if you incorporate AI-generated text, characters, or plot in your manuscript, you, the writer, must disclose it to your publisher. Perhaps the government could get involved and begin to force people to state if AI was used at all in creations. And there was an effort in 2023, Executive Order on the safe, secure, trustworthy development and use of artificial intelligence. But the current administration, of course, revoked the Biden administration's AI executive order. But now it's saying that there needs to be federal oversight and pretty much proposing the same thing that it revoked. Of course, the difference now being it has to be with the approval of tech companies like Universal Music Group that wants to turn audio into a slop machine. It all boils down to just how much can we trust musicians and creators to be honest when they submit their content. Because how else will you prove if somebody used AI or not until we get a 100% technology that can identify AI, no matter how much, to the smallest degree? So can we trust musicians? What kind of musician do you aspire to be? Honest or wealthy? According to Dr. S. Kennedy of the United States Research Facility, there is a trade-off between being honest and being wealthy. A simple fact is that many people who accumulate vast wealth have somewhat resorted to unclean or dishonest means of business or lifestyle in order to fool people into doing business with them or buying their products or services, or didn't voluntarily disclose that they used AI in creating the content, the music, or the AI generated 100% by itself. Can we trust them? Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share this video if you like it. Bye.